Welcome to Trigger Proof with Mikki Bey, the podcast that helps you stop reacting and start responding. I'm your host, Mikki Bey, emotional regulation coach, speaker, and guide. Each week, we'll explore real stories, practical tools, and conversations that will help you stay calm, confident, and in control, no matter what life throws your way. Let's get started. Welcome back to Trigger Proof. Listen, today is no doubt going to knock your socks off because I have Brian Gibney with me. I ran across a reel on Instagram that absolutely stopped me in my tracks, and I knew I had to invite him on this podcast. Brian is a surrogate partner and intimacy coach. Yes, I said surrogate partner. We are going to get into all of what that means, but trust me, this is going to be a conversation you want to have your ears perked up on, because our initial conversation just absolutely touched me to my core. And I know that this is going to be a very special episode. So Brian, welcome to Trigger Proof. Thank you so much for being here.
It's great to be here. I'm so excited to continue the conversation that we had and share it with other folks.
Yes. So first, explain to us what your title actually means. So what does it mean to be a surrogate partner?
Right. So a surrogate partner is a professional, a trained professional that works in conjunction with a therapist to help clients overcome obstacles to emotional and physical intimacy. We usually work with folks that don't have access to partners, so they can't learn these things organically through relationships. Usually the obstacles are so severe, they prevent folks from having relationships. They're so scared to go on first dates. The idea of having sex or physical intimacy is so daunting that they just can't do it.
Okay. Wow. So what are some of the reasons someone would reach out to you? So you mentioned that they have most likely something that's really preventative from them getting into a
Yeah.
relationship. But what would, if I'm looking for a surrogate partner, like how would I even know to look for that?
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting because historically, surrogate partner therapy was used for men that were experiencing erectile difficulty, orgasmic difficulty, or something like that. Masterson Johnson, way back in the 70s, kind of invented this field for that purpose. But over the past couple of decades, the purpose, the clients that we serve, has really expanded as we have learned that lots of people need helps with sexuality and intimacy. It's not just about male sexual functioning. So a lot of the clients that I work with have histories of abuse or assault, right? They might have experiences of genital pain, right? They might have vulvodynia or vaginismus. They might have physical disabilities where they're like, listen, because society tends to shun folks with physical disabilities and say you're not allowed to be intimate with other people because everything about your body makes me feel uncomfortable. They haven't had access to partners and they don't know how to use their bodies because they haven't had this access. I often work with folks that are navigating their orientation or their identity, right? We talked a little bit about in our conversation before about folks that are somewhere on the queer spectrum, somewhere on the asexuality spectrum, folks that are undergoing gender transitions. Those are all folks that can really use a trained professional that they don't have to worry about protecting my feelings or how I'm going to react, right? I am here in service to their work, and we're not trying to navigate this in an organic relationship.
That is so good. And one of the things that comes to mind that I initially, when I first encountered you on the reel, I thought was so interesting is that you said, look, this is sex work. So I want to just let the cat out the
Yeah.
bag right there. But I want you to talk about where this falls in the spectrum of sex work, because the reason this was interesting to me is because of the therapeutic aspect to it. And of
Right.
course, being an
Right.
emotional regulation coach, that perked me up because I can understand why this would be important. And just because we are also very touch deprived this day and age. And a lot of us are
Seriously.
extremely in a deficit for just having emotional relationships and also physical relationships with people.
Yeah.
So can you just talk to me a little bit about the spectrum of where you are and where you fall in sex work?
For sure. So I would say historically, a lot of folks in our field would not consider themselves sex workers because there's a certain amount of othering that happens, right? I call it the hierarchy. It's a term that other people use, right? A hierarchy of sex work. And because surrogate partner therapy is associated with therapeutic practices, we get to proudly say, oh, we're different from those other sex workers. I don't like how that fits at all, especially because I do other types of sex work,
Mm-hmm.
right? This is a specific flavor of sex work that does not necessarily need to include sex, right? A lot of people come into surrogate partner therapy thinking, oh, you're going to give me a blowjob and that's going to magically heal me and I'm going to be better. That's not how it works at all. So it's different from a kind of like a full service sex work, but it is still sex work because mostly when folks work with us, there is what I call erotic potential. They come into the work knowing that their relationship with us is going to be really different than their relationship with their therapist. There is the possibility that we're going to hold hands. There's a possibility that we're going to snuggle or kiss. There's a possibility that we might get naked. There's a possibility that we might even experience shared eroticism. The shared eroticism is a context to explore everything else that we've practiced in the past. So if we're talking about how to set boundaries while in relationship together, we practice that with holding hands, with snuggling, right? With how we orient ourselves to each other in the room before we even think about possibility of eroticism.
I love that. I think the other thing that was really surprising to me in our first conversation was you talking about how this is really just about showing people how to relate to other humans. I think that's so big. Can you expound upon that a little bit?
Right. So, I think one of the things that came up in our conversation that I really want to repeat here is like so many people relate to each other as things that we obtain so we get access to intimacy. So in surrogate partner therapy, we're really taking that model of relationship that we're taught, even if we don't know that we're like explicitly being taught it, and saying, okay, what is it like to interact with another human as a human being curious about their experiences, being respectful of their boundaries, figuring out where our wants and our boundaries like intersect in a way and how we both contribute to that to make the relationship fun and something that can be continually evolving. And this is something that I'm going to like nerd out with for a bit, like how we are normally taught to do relationships. If we're talking about like a nerdy Venn diagram, like two circles overlapping, right? The Disneyfied version of relationships, the fairy tale relationship is two become one, right? We have two people, and we know the relationship is successful when those two people morph into absolutely common desires on the same page all the time. In what world does that ever happen,
Right.
right? It might happen in a moment briefly, but it's certainly not an expectation that we can really have in a healthy relationship. The problem with having that as a model is that when the overlap becomes less, we see that as a problem in the relationship. So what I say when I'm teaching folks about this in intimacy coaching and surrogate partner therapy, when I'm training therapists, is that the model that I hope clients get to use is not two people overlapping to become one. It's two people with a third entity, the relationship in between them. And we get to decide what we put into it and what we take out of it. And if there's a little
Yes.
bit of flex, that's not a problem, right? That's not failure. This is just the nature of the container that we are building for our relationship.
You know, I love the words that you're using, right? Like the container for the relationship, because when I think about the sexual experiences I've had, I did not feel containment. And that's just being
Yeah.
honest, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
did not feel containment. And I've only had one sexual experience where I would say it was healing. And it was a sexual experience and encounter where I felt completely 100% on board in every cell of my body. And when I think
Mhm.
about my own sexuality and the way in which I have interacted with intimacy from the time I became intimate up until now, I'm in my early 40s. I can't say that I've had a great relationship with intimacy.
Really?
And no, no, absolutely not. I mean, I grew up really feeling like I was broken. I did not enjoy sex for many years, to the point where I really thought maybe this is just not for me in this lifetime, because I
Yeah.
am not having the experience that other people seem to be having, or at least what they purport to be having. That was not
Mhm.
happening for me. I was not having orgasms. I was not really even enjoying most parts of the sexual experience. And that is very othering. And it made me
Yep.
feel like, well, there must be something wrong with me if I'm the only one not having this experience. And really, through our conversation last time, I realized something very important, which was I did not have even the language to express what I desire, what I wanted, what I didn't want, what I was maybe up for, or any of that. And I think sometimes, even when we think we're having those conversations with our partners, they're not full conversations, at least in my
No.
experience.
Oh, no. No. By design, really, right? Because we've been taught that the pinnacle sexual experience should be natural, shouldn't require any conversation, and it should be like this escalation in passion where we just surrender to our needs, and that surrendering should be enough,
Mm.
right? We see it in media all the time. We see it in romance novels and things like that. And it's like, no, like the best sex I have ever had has had ebb and flow, has had communication, right? Has had conversations about where are you today? Where are you in the moment? Where is your body? When I'm working with clients and I'm talking about when I ask you, do you want a hug? I don't want to skip to the yes, I want a hug or no, I don't want a hug, the binary of it, right? How most people think of consent. What I'm curious about is like, what's your experience in your body when you think about that? If someone asks me if I want a hug, I'm going, I just had a really big burrito for lunch. My belly doesn't want to get pressed on, right? I just met you. I'm a pretty huggy person, but I'm not quite there yet with you. Like, let's unpack it a little bit. So, a yes is not a commitment to like enduring something just to be polite, and a no is not completely spurning someone. There's got to be some middle that leaves room for this beautiful thing that I like that I call ambivalence, that accounts for all the things that we're experiencing at the same time.
And you know what? And that's so major too, because I think with inside of the consent conversation, one of the places that I feel like I have been lost in that conversation in my own experience is that in my experience, there's been a lot of implied yeses versus an actual
Mhm.
yes out of my mouth. And what
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
realized is that it wasn't malicious. It wasn't like the person I was with was like not trying to gain consent, but we are not really taught that consent is ongoing. And just because
Right.
we have had sex before doesn't mean I'm ready, or doesn't mean that I want to again, or doesn't mean
Mhm.
that just because
Mhm.
you had consent before that consent is there now. And I have been caught up in that many times where
Sure.
I've ended
Sure.
up having sex I didn't want to have because of this implied consent. And
I
what I'm
have.
yeah, yeah. And I also think that there was only, like I said, that one intimate situation that I was in where the person I was with asked for consent for absolutely everything. Nothing was progressed with any type of just reckless abandon. Everything that we did, there was space, there was time, there was a question, asked.
Mhm.
And what
Mhm.
that did for me as a woman is it really allowed me to feel emotionally, physically, and like I would say therapeutically safe.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and because of that, my body was able to relax in a way where I literally felt like I left my body in orgasmic bliss
Yeah.
because every cell in my body said yes. There was no part of me that was saying no. But that is one experience out of however many experiences in 42 years. And before having a conversation with you, I did not even realize that that was something special. And as bad as
Yeah.
as bad as that
Yeah.
sounds, because it only happened one time. So if this is the way it's supposed to be, why are we not interacting with each other in that way? And why are we
Right.
not having conversations to talk about how to actually feel ready and not be on the ambivalent fence, right? And not
Mhm.
progressing
Mhm.
when you're feeling like maybe just not right now. I don't want to do all of these things. Because I think as a woman, I've been in situations where I felt like, oh, I've already gone too far. I've already
Yeah.
allowed
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
this much. So how can I then now say no to this? But
Right.
being with a partner who is really in touch with their self and able to account for this experience being a collaborative experience, that is everything because it's not just about the climaxing. It's really a dance. It is a communication. It is
Yes.
relating
Yes.
to this person in front of you. And it makes all the difference.
Yeah. I always like to say, what is it like to experience intimacy without scarcity or urgency? Right? Scarcity is I'm coming in so hungry that I need to get everything right now. And urgency is like I must move this forward to get that need satisfied. Like what if we're able to chill
Yes.
for long enough to really be in the experience and not be so grabby and pay attention to what we're feeling and leave space for each
Whatever.
either person, right? And some of this falls into gender dynamics, right? Historically, like we live in a patriarchy, there's an expectation that men have all this sexual desire that needs to be fulfilled, and women, if they want to be in a relationship, if they want to have the lifestyle security, this is something they have to give men from time to time, right? Or more often than from time to time. What if we were break out of that dynamic and to be like, what do you actually need in the moment, right? Most men need to be held, to be seen, to be supported. But they've been taught the only way I have access to feeling these things is through sex.
Wow.
Most women have been taught I need the emotional security, I need the protection, I need the companionship. I have to give him sex so he'll give me those things. Right? That kind of transactional dynamic doesn't help anybody.
That's so true. Can you talk to me about the can I exercise?
Yeah, then may I will you exercises.
Yes.
So these are things that I do in the very beginning of my work with clients, whether we're working as in intimacy coaching or whether we're working in surrogate partner therapy, because we're still just getting to know each other, right? And they're coming to me and saying something like, my sex is broken, please help. And they understand this is what I do for work. I come with professional recommendations, but it's still wild stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there has to be some kind of feeling of safety cultivated in the relationship before we even consider doing other things. And how we start to foster that sense of safety is we ask each other, may I or will you questions. They can be about anything, but how we respond to those questions happens in a bunch of phases that kind of escalate and they're stacked on each other. In the very first phase, when we ask each other, may I or will you questions, the answer is always going to be no. In principle, how can I trust your yes if you are not able to say no to me?
Oh my gosh.
Right? But then also part of that is when you say no to me, I say thank you, right? Thank you for letting me know that this is not something you want to do, because I want to come at you with a need, say, hey, this is something I think would be fun. It's only fun for me, only connecting to me if you're also in it with me. That's the whole point of it.
Yes.
Thank you for telling me that this is not going to connect us further. And we get to explore how we're socialized, what we're taught about asking for needs, what we're taught about responding to other people's needs, right? You, who's been socialized as a woman, having me, a man, ask you a question, I can imagine that saying no is hard. You, as a Black woman, having a white man ask something of you, has a lot of different feelings, right? It can, like, my need, me requesting a need, can feel extractive. It can feel like this is the white dude always doing what white dudes do. They take, right?
Right.
What is it like for me to say, this is what I want, but I don't want to take, right? I want to do this if we're on the same page.
That, I mean, that just hit my whole heart, Brian. Like, really. And it's the idea of coming from a place where you're already with your full cup, right? Because like you said,
Yeah.
you've already learned to meet your own needs. This is what I'm hearing out of it anyway. Because the way that you can come to a encounter without the scarcity and urgency is that you are self-fulfilled in a way, right? Because I'm coming to enjoy this with you. I'm bringing what I have to enjoy with you versus coming purely to take from you and to extract from you. And quite honestly, as a woman, I have felt extracted from more times than not. And leaving the situation feeling completely unfulfilled in that particular intimate scenario. But also, I grew up to believe that this was duty, right? Especially when I was in my marriage. And so a part of that for me was, well, it wasn't supposed to be enjoyable for me. It wasn't supposed to be this firework experience for me. This was something that I was supposed to do to fulfill my obligation as a wife or to fulfill my obligation as a partner. And I think there's a lot of reprogramming that some of us have to go through because we have the religious programming, some of us, like you said, cultural, social norms. All of these things play into what's happening in the bedroom. And I think what our conversation has done for me is really, this conversation is important for a number of reasons, but really why it's important is because to me, it's an overall wellness conversation. And when I think about where sex has been in my own life, it is the most underdeveloped part of me, where I have spent so much time in personal development, so much time understanding myself, so much time understanding emotions and how to have interpersonal relationships. And yet none of that has really translated into sex, into intimacy in my relationships. And dare I say, it's where I feel most insecure because there's this feeling of not knowing. And there's this feeling of, well, where am I supposed to get this kind of information? And so when I ran across you, I thought, my gosh, well, how do you even come across? I mean, thank goodness for the real, because I would not have ever even known that you existed. And then furthermore, I can't even say that I would have the guts to call you, you know?
Right. Yeah.
I can't say, even though I know I would need it.
Right. What I do for work, first off, there are not a lot of us out there. There's a broad field of kind of sexuality and relationship professionals. But like, let's just say what I do is kind of weird, right? It's like very much outside of the societal norm of like, this is what folks do for work. But also our culture has in general so much shame associated with sexuality by design, right? Because God forbid we're in charge of our own pleasure.
Yep.
God forbid we have the tools to build healthy connections and support systems within ourselves as opposed to in kind of a hierarchical system. Right? This is where I get like super radical in how this work influences all the things. And in most in most relationships, it's the blind leading the blind. Like, I don't say that in a judgmental way. Like, this is the soup that we are all in. We're working with what we got. And a lot of that knowledge and the permission to attain that knowledge has been stripped from us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think the main reason I would not go for someone like you, in my mind, would be a safety concern, right?
Sure.
I would be like, well, here I am, a woman paying a man, right, for
Mhm.
potentially an intimate encounter. How can I ensure my safety with this? So can you
Right.
talk to me a little
Right.
bit about that? Like, let's say this is something I want to try. Like, what would be some of the guardrails and some of the things I should look out for
Yeah.
as I'm looking for this type of service?
This is a good question. And when I'm working as a surrogate partner, one of the first and biggest guardrails is what we call the therapeutic triad. So working in collaboration with a therapist. There's someone outside of whatever relationship that we have that has eyeballs on it.
Mm-hmm.
And you're coming back to them saying, okay, so this is something that I think I might want to do with Brian, right? How do I know he's not going to hurt me? Right? And then the therapist helps you have conversations with me where I say, well, in the very beginning, we're not fucking right off. Not even
Right.
close to it, right? We might be standing in the room together and talking about how our proximity or distance and our orientation makes us feel, right? I'm inviting into our relationship an opportunity for you to say, I don't feel safe here, even if it's in like a little baby way.
Right.
And then you get to see me respond to that. I respect and also help you create more autonomy, right? And in doing that, it's not about me having an agenda and forcing that agenda on you. It's about me teaching you how to say, well, how do we explore this together? So the therapeutic triad is one way that we come out at safety with. The other thing is what we just talked about is kind of pacing. I might work with clients for a year on average, right? And like I said, we're not getting to the fucking on day one, even
Right.
close. Sometimes with clients, when we are trying to orient to each other in space, we're not in a closed room, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're out in a coffee shop, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we have to talk about, is it harder to be seen together with me because of whatever is going on in your brain about what this means?
Mm-hmm.
Attached to, we have multiple eyes on what's going on, or do something more privately where you're not being seen. We're not poking that shame button, but we don't have layers of insulation,
Right.
right? Day one, we're having these conversations.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes with clients, we're having our first session together and they have their hands on the doorknob, and I'm as far away as I can be, laying down on the floor. And they're like, okay, I feel like I can have a conversation with you now. And not a conversation where they're like white knuckling their way through the talk, a conversation where they're listening to their somatic, their body-based cues. Because this is where we first abandon ourselves, or we're
Yes.
taught to abandon ourselves. We're little kids, we're having a tantrum. Mom or dad says, stop doing that, stop making a scene, pick yourself up, we're going to do X.
Mm-hmm.
And everything that we're taught from our parents, even the best parents, everything we're taught in school, you have to raise your hand if you want to go to the bathroom, is to ignore those cues in deference to what someone else wants.
Oh, Brian, you just said a thing right there, in deference to what someone else wants. So that's where the self abandonment becomes so normalized. And so it's
Yep.
difficult to break out of. And then, like I said, don't even add the extra layers onto it, right? Like I grew up with
Me too.
religion in there. So it's just like that the layers, it just keeps piling up. And I know for
It does.
me, and for a lot of Black people, unfortunately for us, sex in our community, especially as we are coming of age, it's more of a mitigation of risk. Like, don't get pregnant, don't get anybody pregnant, basically.
Yep.
That's the talk.
Yep.
And
Mhm.
so as
Mhm.
long as you make it out without getting somebody pregnant and you don't get pregnant, it was like success. But nobody
Right.
is having I have not had one conversation with really anyone outside of you that has talked to me about how to have a conversation around my wants, needs, boundaries, consent, what I would like to experience, how I would like to experience it, to the point
Mhm.
where after our initial conversation, everyone I talked to the next week, I told them, I said, look, whoever my next partner is, if we don't go see Brian, we're not going there because we have to. No, I'm dead serious because I want to, in this stage in my life, I'm not having any sex I don't want to have. That's number one. And number
Yeah.
two, I'm not having any sex that is not 100% full body yes, consent based, and where my
Mhm.
partner is doesn't have the awareness to know what that looks and or feels like, right? And doesn't have the
Right.
ability to understand what ambivalence is, to use my sexual experience as a classroom and to learn
Yes.
from it just the way that I learned from anything else with emotional regulation. I can tell you when I had that very healing sexual experience, I literally came home and I told my best friend, this is the direct quote that I told her. I said, he fucked the trauma out of me. And
Yeah.
I meant it. I meant every word of that because it was so therapeutic in a way that I felt like years of trauma lifted out of my body, things that I did
Yeah.
not even know were there. And so that is why this conversation interests me as an emotional regulation coach, because after that experience, I was like, how am I not having conversations about sex? Like, I am
Mhm.
missing a
Mhm.
huge component in my own coaching by not having this conversation around the release of having really safe, the true name of safe sex, right? So talk to
Yeah.
me about
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
an
Yeah.
emotional regulation perspective, what you've seen happen with your clients.
So a lot of folks that see me come in feeling very dysregulated around sexuality. And I'm going to use some therapy terms because I'm in a therapy world, right?
Yep.
Feel really dysregulated. Like it's really hard for them to be calm, be in their like really good thinking brain around sexuality and relationships. And they think they need to do the sex, have good sex to get regulated, right? And I'm gonna double back to what you just said about your experience, right? My understanding is it wasn't that you just got a phenomenal dicking down, right?
Correct.
It was that you were with a person that was constantly in attunement with you, and that attunement led to the good sex,
Yes.
right? So a lot of what we're doing in surrogate partner therapy and in other touch modalities is to put that attunement forward, right? And it's not something that we magically can sense, right? Because there are a whole lot of ways that can go wrong. Oh, I thought because you know, you were doing this that meant go forward. No, let's use our words. What does it feel like to constantly getting back to that Venn diagram, constantly add stuff into that relationship? Question asked, boundaries respected, agency respected. Okay, we can build on that foundation.
Mhm.
More questions asked, whether it's a yes or no, boundaries respected, agency respected. That's hot sex, right?
A
What you're
hundred
doing with
percent.
your bodies is almost tangential,
Yes.
right? And what that does is that teaches our nervous system to be calm and open around each other.
Mm.
And when you're
Mhm.
talking about having good sex, right? I'm not gonna come if my nervous system is like, oh my God, what's gonna happen next?
Yes. Yes. It's so true. It's so true. I want to talk about attunement because I
Yeah.
don't think this is common knowledge. I want you to define what attunement is and what it give us an
Right.
example of what it would be like to attune to your partner.
Right. So I think in like the least clinical terms, I would like to use attunement as like being on the same page.
Mhm.
Right. And what I said before, we start to attune to each other by using our words, because there are nonverbal ways to attune, there are energetic ways to attune, but we don't really know what's going on. And it's one thing to say, oh, we're vibing together, right? I'm picking up on the vibes. I'm feeling something here. It's another thing to say, let me check in on what your experience is by using my words.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So like Mikki, we had a great conversation the other day. We were vibing, it's great. I felt like there was a connection. Like we're really on the same page about this stuff. It was really cool to talk to you. I would like to talk to you again.
Mm-hmm.
That gives you the opportunity to be like, that thing that you were picking up on, yeah, I'm feeling it too.
Yes.
But there has to be enough safety in the relationship for you to say, your experience was not what I was experiencing.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's good, Brian.
Right?
That is so good. Because that's the problem, right? Is that I think, okay, so I'm getting a download. Like the download that I just got when you said that was ultimately, I think in traditional relationships where this education is not present, we are skipping over the safety portion and expecting for safety to be inherent in the fact that we're in whatever this container of the relationship is. We're assuming safety versus actually building towards safety. So then when it's
Yes.
time to
Yes.
object from something, you can't do it because there
Right.
hasn't been this layer of safety established where you're not afraid of losing love. You're not afraid of being othered. You're not
Right.
afraid that this person is going to reject you, right? And so that is so, so, so important that you get to a place where you're vulnerable enough, but also have enough agency to just say, I'm not there. This
Yeah.
doesn't work for
Yeah.
me. That's not the
And
experience
that
I had.
and that's not going to be the be all and end all of a relationship, right?
Right.
If I'm with a lover and I'm like, hey, I'm feeling sexy, like you want to do a little something something, they can be like, I'm not really there tonight, and I'm not going to be like, oh, you don't
Right.
love me anymore. It's like, okay, that's cool. Like, I'm gonna go and jerk off, and they're like, cool. I don't want to have sex with you, but can I watch you jerk off? Because that's really hot.
There you go.
Right? So there's a flexibility in that ask, answer, I'm going to meet you where you are kind of thing that honors the agency of both the people, and we can
Hmm.
find a common ground or not
I
find a
would like
common
to.
ground, and it's okay.
Yeah, I would love to give like some practical tips for, I would think, like the two kinds of people that may be watching this. So let's say, what are some practical tips for people who may be in a relationship and people who may be single, as far as what you can do in your single season to start kind of building up some of these skills? And then if you're in a relationship where maybe some of these steps have been skipped,
Yeah, sure.
what
Yeah.
can you do?
I love this. So this is so one of these things is like a very practical exercise that I do with clients, and I call it a sensate body scan. It looks a lot like a meditation, but it's not a meditation as in like I'm just doing this to become relaxed.
Hmm.
We're not doing this to become relaxed. We're doing this to deepen the pathway of our relationship with our body and the experience that it's having. So from head to toe, think about what is this part of my body experiencing right now? Temperature, texture, pressure, right? I'm noticing that my glasses are pressing up against the top of my ears. They're pressing against the bridge of my nose. I'm feeling a little bit of like air current on the hairs of my arms from the heat that's blowing, right? My butt's experiencing the weight of my body as I'm sitting down in the chair. Just getting used to cataloging these feelings. So when you are having conversations with someone, especially around physical intimacy, you can be like, okay, practice in myself. I know how to identify these so I can better communicate them with folks.
Hmm.
So often we go from we're asked a question, how does this feel? Oh, baby, it feels good. The question really should be, what are you feeling? And then you, as the person who's asked that question, should have enough of a vocabulary to be I'm noticing that like your hand on my hip right there, that pressure is like, that's real nice, right? Or like you're scratching my back. I'm feeling your nails on my back. That's hot. Or that's too much. Can you ease off on the pressure? Yeah, right? But you have to start with home base, with what's going on in your body. Because if you don't know what's going on in your body, how are you ever going to ask someone what ask them to do something for you? How are you ever going to be able to communicate what you want or what you don't want?
Do you think there's a such thing as truly being incompatible sexually? Or can any two people
Sure.
really okay, talk to me about that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if you truly are incompatible with someone, how do you know that? Like you just can't work on
Yeah.
it.
I mean, for me, if someone can't have a conversation about sex, that's a pretty big fucking incompatibility,
Yeah.
right? But, I'm a non-monogamous human. I am a kinky human. It's possible. Let me back up, right? Compatibility for me is a big cloud of things,
Hmm.
right? Sex is huge for me. And I can be snuggling with a partner and interlacing my fingers with their fingers, and that can be sex for me, right? Or we can be doing some kinky stuff. That could be sex for me. I think most people think of sex as this linear progression, especially in heterosexual relationships, linear progression to like dicks and holes,
Right.
right? So I'm blowing that linear progression up, and it's just like a whole cloud of things.
Hmm. Hmm.
Because of that Venn diagram that we were talking about before, we can pick and choose what's compatible and what's incompatible.
Hmm.
It's one of the reasons why I can do this work is like we can find places where we're compatible. We don't have to be compatible everywhere,
Right.
right? But for me, it is an incompatibility to not view it as a constant experiment and journey together.
Listen, that is exactly where I am right now. I really want someone who wants to use this as, like I said, like a classroom, like ways that we learn about
Yeah.
ourselves and ways that we learn about who we are in this relationship. Right. And I
Mhm.
want someone who wants to get better at it too. Like, not just like whatever
Yeah.
I've been doing for the last 30 years should suffice for you, but like, no, I want to
Mhm.
really learn you and I want to learn like what we like together and I want to experiment. And I feel like in my life, I've just been such a late bloomer to a lot of this stuff. Like I haven't experienced a lot of things that I think I might be into just for the simple fact that I didn't come across it until now, right? I'm just now hearing of some of this stuff. And so I really feel like for me safety is huge because if I'm going to be trying something out that I have not done, I have to know that I'm in a safe space. I
Yeah.
have to know that this person is a safe person to try these things with. So like this conversation for me, I mean, has done so much, just by way of me understanding what I want and need in any partner. And to me, that is what makes the sex good,
Yeah.
is just being
Yeah.
able to really have a conversation about what we both want or desire and or don't.
Yeah. One of the things you asked before was like, what advice can you give to people that are in their single season? What advice can you give to
Hmm.
couples? Right. My advice to couples, like rather than just doing like a deep, deep dive into it, is slow the fuck down and be curious.
Hmm.
Right. It's not a race to the quick fix.
Right.
It's a journey you're taking with a partner.
Yes. Yes. I love that. Well, Brian, is there anything else that we didn't get to that you feel like we need to say?
Oh my God, there's so much.
Oh, well, give me some
We could
nutshells.
talk. We could talk all day, but like I'm feeling really complete with this. And if you wanted to talk again, we could delve into some of the other stuff.
Listen, don't tip me with another session because I would
Mm,
love to continue this conversation. So let people know how they can get in touch with you.
Sure. The best way to get in touch with me is through my website. It's Brian Gibney, GIBNEY.org. I'm on social media, but just a little bit. So yeah, reach out to me on my website and schedule an appointment. We can have a talk. And even if you don't know if the work is right for you, even if you don't know if I'm the right person for you, let's have a conversation.
You know what? I actually do have one more question.
Bring it.
How do you know, or who is this not right for? Are there some people that like,
Right.
for sure, this is not the lane that they need to be in?
Right. So I'll chunk it out, right? Like surrogate partner therapy is one thing. Intimacy coaching is another thing. Full service sex work is another thing, right?
Okay.
Surrogate partner therapy. If you just want to get your rocks off, if you're just looking for someone to like scratch that itch, not for you.
Hmm.
Right? If you don't want to do the work, if you don't want to do therapy, not for you. If you are in a couple already, probably not for you, right? Intimacy coaching, still got to be curious, right? You can be in a relationship for that stuff, but I'm going to be working with you differently as an intimacy coach than I am as a surrogate partner, right? It's not
Hmm.
about the relationship between you and me. It's about me using the skills that I have to help you all figure it out. Full service sex work. If you want to have an experience and you're like, Brian, I've always wanted to be with someone that I could trust, that was open to sexuality short term. Like going to someone and finding them in a bar. I don't know if I can trust them, but like you seem like you talk really well about this stuff. Yeah, let's do that. Right. The pace and the timing is going to be way different than intimacy coaching or surrogate partner therapy, but it's allowed.
Also, how do you manage your own boundaries with this? Like, how are you communicating that in each of those kind of like three containers? I assume that they're different. They could be different.
Very different. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, I have the same basic conversation that we just had about when I'm wearing this hat, this is how I'm showing up. When I'm wearing this hat, this is how I'm showing up. When I'm wearing this hat, this is how I'm showing up.
Hmm.
And I'm very good about not blending them, right? You don't go from surrogate partner therapy into using me as a full service worker, right?
Makes
That's
sense.
not in the spirit of the work. So I have pretty clear professional boundaries.
Okay.
And how I manage that is I'm okay with people saying, because of your boundaries, this is not going to be a good fit.
Mm.
Right. If
Okay.
someone is like pushing, 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 no, I want you in this way. I'm like, that's not how I work.
Mhm. Okay, wonderful. Ah, Brian, so good. So good. I know that this conversation is going to be eye-opening to so many as it was for
Yeah.
me. And I really hope that the viewers and the listeners of this podcast can really hear the spirit of the work that you do because I really feel like, I almost say it, you doing the Lord's work. I know that that's probably not not what people would normally say about this, but it really is. It is like holy work because ultimately, even why I do what I do is because I feel like it is my ministry and my gift, my spiritual gift to turn you back into yourself. And that is what
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
hear and feel when you and I are talking. And this is why it resonates so much with me because on the surface, it could look like we're just talking about sex, right? And it is so much more than that. To me, this is a mental health conversation. This is a wellness conversation. This is a how to relate conversation. It's an emotional regulation conversation. There are so many
It's a
legs.
community conversation, right? Like
It
how do we
is.
exist with other people?
It really is. And I want us to stop looking at sex as this siloed thing. It is a part of life,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
I know I have siloed it off in my life and in my experience. And
Mhm.
honestly, there was a time where I would not have even done this podcast because I would have felt like this was too risque. And I would not have
Yeah.
shared my personal experiences because I would have been like, oh God, now they're gonna be like, oh, Mikki Bey was doing that. I don't give a damn, and the
Mhm.
reason is because some of us are called to live in a way where we can be the example of what is possible. And I know that that's one of the things that I've been called to is that if I have to be the
Yeah.
poster child for whatever so that somebody gets the information, I'm willing to do that. I'll be tribute. Right. And so I just thank you for the work that you're doing. And I think that the awareness that you exist is going to help so many people, even if you never meet them or even if they never actually go through with it. Just knowing that there are people who can help in this way is so powerful. So just thank you for everything that you do. And thank you for your openness and willingness to come here and talk about your work with me.
Oh, thank you so much. I love having this conversation. I love doing the work that I do, and I love sharing it with people.
Thank you so much, Brian. Thanks for joining me on Trigger Proof with Mikki Bey. If this episode resonated with you, share it with a friend. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you're really ready to dive deeper, download my free emotional regulation bundle. It includes my ebook, workbook, and a masterclass to help you start regulating with confidence. Find the link in the show notes. And until next time, stay steady, stay grounded, and stay trigger proof.